The Dentons have a podcast called The Loud Quiet, dedicated specifically to couples who are navigating those empty nest years.
That was a big struggle for me to not hop on a plane and go out there and take care of it myself.
But let's be honest, my love. We do have those times where we can run naked through the house. I just want to make that point.
You want to be the fixer, but they have to learn how to fix these things on their own.
I don't think we're ever going to figure it out. We could talk for 1,000 episodes on this one thing, and I don't think we'll ever get it figured out.
What's it like when your parents start dating? Watching my mom date and then remarry.
Welcome to Marriage IQ, the podcast helping you become an intelligent spouse.
I'm Heidi Hastings.
And I'm Scott Hastings.
We are two doctors, two researchers, two spouses, two lovers, and two incredibly different human beings coming together for one purpose: to change the stinky parts of your marriage into scintillating ones, using intelligence mixed with a little fun. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Marriage IQ. We're really happy to have you back with us again today, and we're really happy to have Rick and Clancy Denton, our neighbors here just a few miles up the street.
Just down the street.
Yeah. We really enjoyed our first part of this episode with them, where we talked about how to navigate those early days of empty nesterhood, how to work with adult children without telling them what to do. And now we're going to see what other wisdom they have for us. The Dentons have a podcast called The Loud Quiet, dedicated specifically to couples who are navigating those empty nest years. And they are just a lot of fun. We really enjoyed the first part of this episode. So we're going to dive right in and hope that you will find lots of stuff that you can relate to on part 2 of this episode. So let's dive in.
Let's go. Woohoo!
So relationships with our kids change a little bit, in our opinion, when kids leave home. Can you tell us how you've navigated that in the best possible way as empty nesters?
Yes. So we have our children, I'm sure, as y'all's, are completely different children. We have one that was the frat bro, so when we would go visit him, we were at all the frat parties and going down Mill Street, if you know what that is.
Yes,
and
we do. Right
Tempe.
there in
Yes.
Tempe.
Yes. So we have hit all those bars and clubs. Our other one is doesn't do any of that stuff. She was a cheerleader, dancer her whole life. She didn't want anything to do with any more sorority type organizations. So she's very quiet, still loves to have fun, but does not drink or do any of that kind of stuff. So they are just total opposites. And so we approach, when we visit them, completely opposite ways. I had a very hard time because our daughter went through a horrible situation with her first roommate freshman year. That was a big struggle for me to not hop on a plane and go out there and take care of it myself.
Take care of it might have involved a shovel. Yeah. So I'm glad she didn't get on that plane.
Mother-child
Mama
link
bear
there.
coming out.
Yes. And Rick was very bothered by it too, but I was literally about to book a flight and go out there and have some words.
Well, I love that example is the one that you're bringing into this, because I think it shows a key part of relating to your adult kids. And these are still, one of us in law school, one's in undergrad. We still view them as our adult kids. And it's, you no longer are, quote, in charge.
Yeah.
You no longer are
You're the support.
Dictated formal authority. You are there to mentor. You are there to coach. You are there to offer advice when that advice is asked of you. And that was a shift for both of us. I feel like I migrated further down that path and faster than you did. And a lot of that very well could be the mama bear thing that we're describing there. But that's really hard to choose to bite your tongue and ask those questions of, do you want to know what I think? Do you want to just vent? A lot of it is similar to the lessons that you have to learn early on in marriage of looking at my wife and saying, do you want to just vent? Or do you want my advice?
Yeah.
And we're starting. Yeah. And we did. And in the end, she handled it herself. And I think this is probably a mom thing. I would take on my kids' emotions from the time they were little.
Mm.
If they were hurting, I was hurting. If they were upset, I was upset, and I could internally feel that. And I've told Rick over the past 2 years, I can feel that I'm letting some of that go. You want to be the fixer, but they have to learn how to fix these things on their own.
And I think I've had a little bit of that too. I just didn't realize it. I think Clancy did a really good job of verbalizing it when she was starting to feel that.
Mm.
Is I would find myself really sad when Tegan was telling these stories, or I'd be angry if Tanner didn't get the result that he had hoped to get, or whatever they were experiencing, but I didn't quite realize it. And I think it was Clancy's insight of, hey, they need to feel their emotions. It's okay for us to kind of react and understand it, but it's their life to live. I was better at just saying, hey, I'm not going to be involved. I'm going to, let them make their own decisions, make their own path, be there if they have questions. That was easier for me, but I didn't even realize, and I think that's true of a lot of emptiness couples, how much you internalize those emotions subconsciously.
Yeah. I think we've had similar things in our experience. Scott is better able to just kind of step back and let them live their lives. But I have that neural pathway formed over many years. And I
How
finally,
dare you stereotype us?
I
How dare you?
I finally figured out I have to say, do you just want me to listen? Do you want empathy or do you want solutions? Because
Right.
my go-to is solutions. Here's what you need to do. The mama in me
Yeah.
teaching, telling. But you're right, those emotions that they feel impact so much us wanting to solve their problems. And I love, Rick, how you said we just have to stand back, let them figure things out, let them live their lives unless they come to us for counsel. That's really fantastic.
And I do want to make sure that we're not just abandoning our kids, and no one's even saying that, but I'll give an example of where the other side of it sort of held true. Tanner was going to be moving from an apartment to a townhome in Dallas. Actually, I have that wrong. Tanner was moving into his first apartment there in Dallas, and he was still working in Tempe. And Clancy really wanted to have a great apartment for him and well furnished and tastefully decorated and all that sort of thing. And I kept saying, hey, he's an adult kid. I had a TV that sat on the floor with used furniture and all that when I had my first apartment. Why don't we just do that? And I still remember you saying, he trusts me.
Rick,
And this was like,
look, man, I don't think we're ever going to figure it out. We could talk for 1,000 episodes on this one thing, and I don't think we'll ever get it figured out.
well, he got his apartment tastefully decorated in spite of me
They're
saying
always
that
tastefully decorated. Trust me.
That's part
without him having to do anything. He was out
yeah.
there in Arizona.
It's part
so.
of the ritual of setting our kids up for success. Scott wanted to drop our son off, leave his boxes and bags and suitcases at the foot of his bed. And I'm like, no, we've got to get
He'll
things put away.
survive. He'll survive. Brush it off, dude.
But it's my last opportunity in this stage of his life to make a difference.
That is the mom. That is the mom. And he kept pushing back on me. He's like, don't you think Tanner wants input on? That's when I say, I know him. I know what he likes. I still shop. If I'm in a store and I see something I know he'll like, I still get it and take it to him. So I know this kid. And yes, I would still send him pictures. Do you like this or this? And get his approval. But yes, it was all very nicely set up for him when he arrived.
I have a question then, Clancy. Do you know Rick as well as your son? Do you know what he likes?
Yes.
Okay.
I can say yes on that.
Well, that's awesome. That's
ask him the
wonderful.
last time he's bought a piece of clothing. Probably
She does. Let's see.
1995.
Is there anything on my body? Oh, wait, yes. These socks that I had to buy because I forgot to pack
Yeah.
socks on the last trip. Those were the last purchase that I have made. She knows what kind of pillows I like on couches. None. And I've lost that battle years ago.
You just throw them off.
Well, and this is all fun, but I do want to drive home this point, though. That's very real about between mother and child. And I think a lot of people have to, well, a lot of mothers might need to think about it more really intentionally. Like, wow, it's just us. There's no kids running around and no kids to take to soccer and football and whatever it is
Mhm.
that we did for so many years. But I mean,
Yeah.
it is a very, very different transition. I think it's hard for a lot of people. It was hard for us. Well, for a month. I was
Mm.
quite depressed. I was depressed,
He was.
actually.
I
Uh-huh.
started
Yeah.
school, so
I was
Mm.
depressed and life sucked for a month. And then I realized that things could be a whole lot better if we just were intentional, like y'all,
Mhm.
Mhm.
about our lives. It's wonderful to think about, oh, we can travel on this date and we don't.
We
Yes.
just got back from a trip that was a Tuesday to Friday trip. And that's the
oh,
kind of thing you
Yeah.
could not
nope.
do.
Oh.
Well,
Mhm.
it was not great to do when you had kids in the
Yeah.
house. And I will tell you, one of the best empty nest travel tip is the fact that you can do it when no one else is. Do you want to
Mhm.
go to Mexico in October? Go to Mexico in
Yeah.
October. Do you want to go to Greece when no one else is there? Go to Greece.
Mm.
It's wonderful not to be tied to an academic calendar.
Yeah, it's cheaper
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
It's really cool. So I know the two of you talk sometimes about the sandwich generation, and
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
is something that we've experienced here in our own lives lately. Would you explain what that is to people and how you navigate that as empty nesters?
So the sandwich generation, which is a term that we had come across sometime when we were doing an episode, basically you're stuck in between still parenting your adult children to some degree, and now you may be moving into that role of having to take care of your own parents. We have gone through a lot with Rick's mom, and it filled a lot of our time after we became empty
You
nesters.
almost could say that I don't want to use the word risk. Well, I will, because risks have different spectrums. It puts a risk at the thriving of the empty nest with the sandwich generation element that we had to experience. So we had adult kids. My dad passed away in 2003. And so it was my mom. She had remarried at the time. She passed away a couple of years ago after a multi-year decline with
Mm,
Alzheimer's.
Wow.
It's a
Yeah.
very difficult, and
yeah.
I never want to say the things like, "Oh, it's one of the worst," because people that experience other things with their parents, it was just a very difficult
Yeah.
thing for us to
Right.
experience, and to watch her go through that decline. Now, thankfully, she had remarried, was remarried to a wonderful man who was her primary caregiver at the time.
Mm.
However, even though my mom was down in Austin, which is 3 hours away, so I couldn't do the day-to-day caregiving elements of this, as a way to help support Jerry, her husband, there were a lot of the financial or other responsibilities that I would take on because I could do those remotely. My sister was there in Austin, able to do a lot of the day-to-day caregiving, all while trying to enjoy, celebrate, coach, mentor the kids that we had, the one that we had in college, one that was in later stages of high school. And then when my mom did pass, my daughter actually was a freshman at university. And there were times that Clancy and I looked at each other and said, all we have talked about
Mm.
is either the caregiving or then after my mom passed, the estate and dealing with the
Mhm.
estate and all of that. And having to be first aware of that, and then secondarily choosing to carve out the moments where that made sense to be focused on, and the times that it made sense to completely discard that for your mind so that we could focus on us or focus on anything for that
Yeah,
matter.
because it infiltrated every aspect of our life, even though we weren't physically there. It really did, and I mean, it's and even to the point that she passed during the week of our son's college graduation, so we're like out celebrating, and we told Tanner, your Mia would not want us to do anything differently than we are doing. She was very much a fun, loving, supportive person, and she would not have wanted us to just drop everything and head to Austin. So, but like Rick said, even after that, we're still dealing with some things, and it's been 2 years now.
And so as a parent, you want to be thinking about your adult kids and that sort of stuff. And then any energy that's directed at the generation above is energy that you weren't anticipating. And so that's where the sandwich can really squeeze
Mhm.
the empty nest couple. And thankfully, Clancy's parents are both living and they're both in great health. They're experience life to a great degree. And even then, there are things that we have to think of and get in their head a little bit, as we've seen perhaps my mom could have done a better job of thinning some of the objects and some of the photos and that sort of aspect that now we are still dealing with. So
Yeah.
elements of that with Clancy's parents as well, having to try to coach and mentor upward is not a natural feeling. And so those of us in that sandwich get a little
And
stuck.
that generation does not like to talk about any of that stuff. And so
We
it
noticed.
is
Yes.
with my parents, we have to schedule, okay, we are going to sit down and talk about, especially after now we've gone through it with your dad, which we were much younger when that happened. And then with your mom, we know the things that need to be planned out before certain things happen, and trying to get them to realize that and open up and start talking about that. It is hard.
Yeah. I think a lot of times when people hear the term sandwich generation, they think about the caregiving aspect. And a parent who is sickly or has Alzheimer or is just physically declining or what that might look like. There's just so many other elements, not only the estate after the fact. What's it like when your parents start dating?
Oh,
Right?
wow.
Watching my mom
Date,
date and
yes,
then remarry and
That's
those
weird,
elements.
man.
It was.
It is, and
was.
that's and at the same time that your kids are at the age and stage of life that they're making
They're
important
dating.
relationship decisions. And
Mhm.
so what is your role as the
Mhm.
coach and the mentor, as the one who we believe we have a very healthy and thriving marriage? What's our role in helping and advising the different generations up and down? So there's a lot of categories of sandwich well beyond just the health
Healthcare,
caregiving.
yes.
I really like how you've formalized this into an idea. The sandwich, right?
Certainly no credit, no branding on
yeah.
our regard, but we have embraced that
Yeah.
concept in a strong way.
Well, you were intentional about it, and I wasn't, but now I am. Thank you.
Yeah, we've gone through a bit of that, and we're far away from both of our parents. But having to travel, I would go quarterly to help out because my sisters that live close to my mom were doing all of the caregiving. I know it was way harder for them. I know the intense burden upon them, their marriages, their kids. That was super hard. But even to some extent, like you're saying, being a little bit further away still carries emotional baggage, maybe, or
Mhm.
that squeeze time. What other ways do you think it impacted your marriage or you as individuals that then impacted your marriage?
I know that I
mean,
felt a lot of guilt
Mm.
at times. Not, and we've talked about this, no regrets. Like I felt a lot of guilt around not being there, and so I would go there once a month. Austin's not as far as
Mhm.
some other distances, so I'd go there once a month. But there'd be elements where if Jerry was doing something really intense or if Rachel was doing a lot of work, I might feel a little bit of guilt around that. And I had to process that, come to the realization the situation is what it is, and there is no guilt to be felt. I'm being the quote good son going down there once a month, and that's what our life can support. That part was an emotional processing. I know that we had to work through some things as
yeah,
well.
because when things started to really get intense, it was our daughter's senior year of high school. She was on the drill team. There were times that he would go to Austin, his flight would get canceled. And so it was, I'm going to rent a car so I can get back to, but I felt, I mean, he knows, I felt like we were being neglected somewhat
Mhm.
in that all of our conversations were focused on what was going on there. And to the point that I had to say, look, we have to stop talking about this at every single meal,
Mhm.
date, everything. And we did. We
Mhm.
checked ourselves on both sides and, realized, but it put a good strain. And then even like you said, after the fact, after she passed, it still infiltrated
Yeah.
our lives.
Because you think as empty, and I think that's one of the almost myths about empty nesting is that all of life's responsibilities disappear
Yeah.
when your kids leave the house,
Yeah,
and therefore it's just running naked through the house, and all responsibilities are gone. Money
Yeah.
worries, they're gone. No family worries.
Wait, we can't
And I
run
think
naked through
that,
the house
Yeah.
anymore?
Retire.
and I think that's elements of that sandwich piece, and especially like Clancy calling out of, look, we can't let this dominate. It's important. We're not diminishing its importance, but we simply cannot let it dominate every aspect of our life. And that is something that we had to work through to realize, okay, the myth of empty nest living doesn't match the reality. What do we need to do about that to improve and then thrive in that empty nest reality?
So, in other
Yes.
words, Rick and Clancy, you were practicing insight,
Yeah.
one of our cornerstones of a healthy, scintillating marriage.
There you go.
Which, like, you're standing back, you're looking at each other, at ourselves, right? There's internal, there's external self-awareness.
Sounds like some boundary setting around the marriage as well to protect the marriage. Do
Yeah.
you agree with that?
Yes. Oh, yes, for sure. And I will say throughout our marriage, had to do that on several occasions with different situations.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
so family oriented mostly, but yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of, holidays and stuff often have discussions around boundaries, and we did a healthy job of setting those boundaries then. I think we have benefited from having our kids be away as we became empty nesters, so that while it is only a 2-hour flight, there's at least sort of a self-imposed boundary of kid can't just come home each weekend
Right.
Mhm.
type thing.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to do that. I know there are a lot of empty nesters that have to have some of that boundary setting. No, you need to go live your life. We're going to live our life. We didn't have as much of a challenge with that. I think I mentioned that trip we just took last week. That was something that's not necessarily a boundary, but a realization, maybe to the insight point of we hadn't traveled a just relaxed, agenda-free vacation as just us in way too long.
We've done some fabulous vacations,
Uh-oh.
but they've been very
Agenda-based,
planned, yes,
go, go,
or
go.
yes.
This was almost the unboundering. Whoa, that's a horrible bastardization.
I know what
word
you
there.
mean.
We had
Of
to do
just
that too a
doing
few months
nothing.
ago.
Yes.
All that requires insight to a healthy, emotionally intelligent, scintillating marriage.
I had to say, I am scheduled to the hilt. I've had it up to here. I need to do nothing but sit on a beach or
Yes.
sit on a lake or on a boat or whatever it is for several days to unwind.
Yes.
But let's be honest, my love. We do have those times where we can run naked through the house. I just want to make that point.
I hope I inspired something for this evening, but just make sure the camera's off.
Or at least you can.
We've all seen the Seinfeld episode. We know the difference between good naked and bad naked. So
So fun.
Yeah.
Well, we're really excited that you're doing a podcast like we are. What else do you do? Do you have places that people can find out about what you're doing if they want to learn more about creating a thriving, scintillating, empty nest marriage?
yeah, absolutely. Everything is available at theloudquiet.com. So there is a newsletter that we put out each week in addition to the podcast. You can sign up for it there. Anyone who signs up does get a free download of our empty nest travel tips and guide.
I'm signing up.
Wow, we'll have to compare it with ours.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's good. We can cross-reference there. And
Yes. Yep.
excitingly, we've got a book coming out later this year
Well,
as
hot
well.
Flippity dog.
What's it called?
The Loud
Loud
Quiet.
Quiet.
The Loud
The
Quiet.
loud quiet.
Do you remember our tagline? We have a
That's the
subtitle.
Subtitle.
What is it?
Living, loving, and I don't know now. I can't remember. We just got back from vacation. We put that all to the side.
I know 3 words, The Loud Quiet. But all of it's available at theloudquiet.com.
Yes.
So
And our Facebook community group there's a button for that as well on the
Yeah.
website.
because we're trying to make sure that this isn't such an isolated stage. And so
love
this
that.
community the idea is not only to be digitally connected, over time as this grows, we want this to be physically connected. As there's different heat maps of groups, we do intend for folks to get together because it can be such an isolating time. And instead, let's all get together.
That's
Like a big moony swimming pool, right?
Yep. Just dive
I
right
like the
in.
idea.
Dive right in. Well, this has been so fun to be with you both. And
Yeah. Thank you so much. Sounds like date night's coming up, in my opinion. Here.
yeah, we're going to have to get
Have to
together.
cross to check some.
I know.
Sounds like you guys are on the same track. So
We love that you love to
For
have
sure.
fun. We love that you're making this a wonderful part of your lives together and creating new identities and new parts of your relationship to go out in style.
thank you so much for joining us. And to all of you out there, we're so glad that you joined us. We hope that you picked up some tips on how to empty nest better. And also find us over at marriageiq.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and marriage tips. And remember, until next time, that to change from a stinky to a scintillating marriage first requires a change in ourselves.
And with that, everybody, have a great week, and we'll see you on another exciting episode of
Marriage IQ.